I came down the stairs with my bag and paused at the bottom, looking at the shabby thing that had carried me through my years in Hearthwick. It was the bag I used for my shopping. It held the flour and sugar and whatever else I could bring away at the end of the day. But when I packed it that day, I placed the blue dress Christian was so partial to at the top, and beneath it, the old clothes I mended, my second pair of shoes, and the jar of buttons and bits of ribbon I traded for bread. They were all things I kept because I didn't know if I'd ever be able to replace them if they were lost. Until that moment, I believed those things mattered very much, because they were all I'd ever been able to call my own. But now I remembered a life in which none of them would have been worth the trouble of saving, and was embarrassed by how highly I valued them. Christian came towards me from the window where he'd been waiting, his hand already reaching for my bag, but I shook my head and bent slightly to set it down beside the wall instead. "It's nothing," I said. "Just some rubbish for the bin." That was the truth of it, I suppose. Whatever I thought was so valuable would only look ridiculous in any house belonging to my family or his. They were the sort of small, worn things that suited the life I'd been living, but not the one I was returning to. "You told me to leave it all behind, did you not?" As the guard opened the door, Christian laid his hand on my back and guided me towards it. "I did, yes," he said. "I had not expected it to be difficult to leave, but when the moment came, I found it was. Neither the bakery nor the building it lived in had ever really been mine, but it gave me a place in the world and work that was my own, and I understood who I was there. I was not at all certain I would understand who I was once I left it. That's what gave me pause, I think." I looked back once, and then his hand on my back urged me forward. "We really must go now, my darling." I went with him then, because I knew he was right to hurry me. He'd always known what was best for me, often before I did, so I understood he was trying to see me safely out before I had time to lose my courage and remain where I was simply because it was what I knew. I understood all of that, and yet I couldn't help feeling that it was all happening so fast, and he might have allowed me a little more time to grow accustomed to the idea of it. It was a foolish thought, but I couldn't say with any honesty that I would ever have found the courage to leave at all if he hadn't insisted upon it. Not since the day my parents and I were dragged from the long black car we'd been riding in had a vehicle of that sort been seen in Hearthwick. When the guard pulled the rear door open for me, it occurred to me that this part of my life was over. I slid across the seat, and for reasons I couldn't properly explain, the idea of never standing in my shop again brought tears to my eyes and left my throat too tight to swallow. I wiped at my cheek before Christian got in beside me. He would likely have thought it silly of me to cry over leaving this place behind, after all he had done to take me away from it. They may have worn the same uniform and attended the same boarding school, but Cyril had had a different sort of upbringing from Christian. Instead of being born into a life of duty, he'd been given the freedom to have feelings and ideas of his own about the world. So when he noticed me crying, he turned in the passenger seat to face me and slipped his phone into his pocket. "Good morning to you, my lady," he said with a smile, as if I had nothing to be ashamed of. The car began to move, and I wiped another tear away. "And you as well," I said. I turned my eyes to the window and watched the town as we passed through it until we came to the lower road leading to the bridge. I have not been this far from the bakery since I got here. I suppose Christian understood before I did what it would cost me to see the bridge again. For when it appeared beyond the line of cherry trees lining the street, his hand came to mine, where it rested in my lap. I hadn't forgotten what they did to us. I tried to keep it put away somewhere in my mind where it couldn't reach me, but it would stay there no longer. The motorcade made a dull, steady sound as we crossed the road bridge, but I found I couldn't look anywhere except at the pieces of rope hanging from the trestle of the railway bridge in the distance. This is the last place I saw my parents alive and dead, I said as I leaned over Christian to touch the window. I realized that I was not myself at that moment. I had the most dreadful urge to open the car door and throw myself out before we passed the bridge to run back. I wanted only one more breath of the place, a piece of rope to hold on to, anything at all that I could say had once been theirs. And as if he could read my mind, Christian had his arm around me, his other hand pulling mine from the glass as he pinned me against him. He said nothing, only laying his mouth against my forehead and gently rocking me. "Your parents' memory does not live in a bridge nor in Hearthwick," Cyril said to me as he reached out and touched my face with a handkerchief. "It lives in you, and now it is your duty to go home and set it free so it can live in everyone else as well." It couldn't have been a long drive, yet it seemed to last both an age and only a few moments at once. But Christian only held me against him, and by the time my breathing steadied again, I found I was so tired of all of it, I could do nothing but rest my head against his shoulder and let the world go on without me for a little while. In that strange stretch of time, my thoughts ran over everything again. All the years in Hearthwick and the ones before it, England, Blackmere, the life I had been born to and the life I had lived instead, and I found I couldn't make the two of them fit together in any sensible way at all, nor imagine how I'd belong to one after living so long in the other. At some point, I closed my eyes, and it seemed no time at all before I felt the car begin to slow and then stop altogether. I opened them again to find we'd come to a checkpoint, with soldiers moving between the vehicles and barriers set across the road. A great roar passed overhead, and I looked out the window to see a large aeroplane lifting into the sky above us. The sound of it was so loud that it filled the air entirely, and when it cleared, there were other sounds in its place. Alarms, engines, voices calling out across a wide, open space that felt very different from the hauntingly quiet mountains I had left an hour before. I realized then, with absolute clarity, that this was the world as it truly was, loud and fast and modern, and moving on, whether or not I was ready for it. The bakery had been something apart from all this, a small, enclosed place where time stalled long enough for me to survive it. Before I had time to reach for my handbag to check my face in my mirror, the car stopped again, and the door was opened beside us by one of the soldiers. Christian let his arm fall away from me and began to move towards the door. "Come, Grace," he said. So I took his hand and stepped out of the car, following him towards the aircraft and whatever was to become of me now,